All right, we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome everyone to our second webinar this week. This time we're going to have a little presentation with Blake over at Capture One. We've been a Capture One dealer for a while now, but we've seen a lot more activity on the Capture One front with Capture 120. I think all of us here at the store are now Capture 120 users. We've all been enjoying the software, like to talk about it, and thought we'd bring Blake in to give us a little overview of Capture 120 and what you can do with it. Maybe if you're coming from another platform like Lightroom or even something else, what are some of the advantages of Capture 120, and just kind of give everyone a brief overview, because Capture One is a rather deep program. There's lots to it, so I'm sure Blake will just be scratching the surface, but we will have some more webinars to come, and at least at the end of the month and maybe beyond that. And then Capture One also has some great resources that I'll make sure to follow up with all of you in an email concerning all kinds of topics that you can learn about. We will have, at the end of the webinar, we will have a discount code for all of you, for all of the attendees. It's a limited time discount for Capture 120 in case you are interested in purchasing. We also have at the end of the webinar, we'll be giving away one Capture 120 license. So stick around for that. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Blake and let him have the rest of the show. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A section of the Zoom webinar. And then once Blake's all done, we'll go ahead and try to get to as many of those as possible. But I'm just going to sit back and let Blake have it from here on out.
All right, sounds great. Thanks for that intro there. So as mentioned, yes, Capture One is a very, very, very broad program that has a lot of different features to it. Today, we are going to kind of go a little bit high level and discuss a couple of the features that I like about Capture One. In fact, it's kind of why we call it the Why Capture One is Awesome presentation. For all of you out there who are looking for more of a how-to webinar, I would recommend tuning in at the end of the month. I'm going to be doing another webinar where we will walk through sort of a basic workflow of importing a photo all the way through export and kind of discuss more high-level what all the tools do. But today, we're talking about just the product as itself. So Capture One is the professional's choice in photo editing software. I have been a Capture One user for the last 4 years. As the old joke goes, I'm not only the president of the Hair Club for Men, I'm also a member. So bringing things in, there's a lot of pieces about Capture One that are very interesting that I've had to kind of learn across the board. And just because we're saying it's the professional's choice in photo editing software, that is still true. But I do fully believe that there is not a photographer working digitally today that cannot benefit in some way from the features that come through Capture One. So what we're going to cover over the next 30, 45 minutes or so is just a little bit of history about Capture One as a software platform. Why would you be interested in using it? Where you can do to learn a little bit more, and we'll go over some pricing as well to kind of get you some ideas of what you're looking at here. So we'll start with what is Capture One. Capture One is the industry leader in raw image editing. So for those of you out there who are currently using other products that might be being used to edit your raw images, we take things to a pretty different level. And we do a lot of interesting things with how to make those raw images the best we possibly can. I'm going to be mentioning color several times during this webinar today because Capture One and color need to go hand in hand. What we do personally is every new camera that is released into the marketplace, Our color scientists and our image scientists get their hands on those as soon as they can, and then create individual profiles for those cameras, taking thousands of images to make sure that the colors that you are capturing in your day-to-day photo and what you're capturing and what you're shooting will more accurately reflect what is available on the screen. Because we do that profiling as well, we also have the ability to control colors in very unique ways, and we'll go over that in a little bit as well. Right now, this slide's a little out of date. It says that we have accurate colors for over 500 cameras. I believe that we actually are up to 600 now through our process. So a little bit more history about Capture One as a company. Back in 1993, Phase One was started. Phase One is and they were and still are pretty much the best and highest end digital back capture systems that are on the market. Capture One started as sort of a piece to Phase One, where we were the interface between the digital backs and your computer of choice. In 2003, we actually introduced and reached out to Canon, Nikon, and have since gone to other brands, Leica, Sony, Fuji, et cetera, to bring those types of image files into our software as well. Again, today we support over 600 cameras, and we've become the industry standard for studio photographers. The interesting part of this is that back in July of last year, we actually started the process to separate away from Phase One. And as of the first of this year, Capture One and Phase One, we still both exist, but we're Phase One and in sort of us on our side, us Capture One, we're standing on our own, and we still support Phase One as sort of our brother company in this case. So you might be asking, well, I've already got something that I like. I've already got some software that works for my workflow. Why would I want to use Capture One? So going over some of again, the high level features of Capture One, we're going to discuss a lot of these in a little bit more detail as we're kind of going on. But again, I want to point out color, color being a big deal across what you're seeing for our feature highlights today. So let's get into color. Capture One is designed to allow for the colors that you're capturing to be more true to life. Again, as I mentioned, our color science team spend a lot of time. It's not as simple as getting a new camera, taking a couple of shots with it and going, okay, this is how it should work. No, each camera is different, and even same model cameras are different from camera to camera. So we've got a lot of options when it comes to profiling those cameras and getting the best image that you possibly can. Part of this as well, because you get the best colors up front, it makes things a lot easier to get the best image out at the end. As they say, garbage in, garbage out. If you get the best image you possibly can at the time of capture, it's going to lead to the best image as time of export. So we're going to do a little bit of an advanced demo today. Part of our tool set are our color editing tools, and one of those is our advanced color editor tool. So we're actually going to do two things. First off, I'm going to show you our color range pattern that you should be seeing on the screen there. And I'm going to actually go into our color editor, and I'm going to select our skin tone tool. Now, normally, of course, the skin tone tool is designed to work with skin tones, and we'll be doing that here very shortly. But as sort of a brief sort of introduction to that, I want to take a look at our color swatch here. Does everything look good on this end? Can we see the color pattern? I want to make sure we're good before I keep going there.
I think all looks good.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and I've taken my eyedropper and I'm selecting this shade of green right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually tick this box here that says View Selected Color Range. That's going to make it a little bit easier for us just to view just what we're looking at. Now, once I've selected that shade of green, you will see that some of the colors that sort of make up around that are some yellows, getting into some teals or some indigos on this side over here. What we can actually do is through this tool, make some selections to narrow down what we're looking at. And then through our uniformity tab, I can actually adjust the color ranges that are being shown. So through this, we can see here very easily that now we're reducing that color bleed, and we're getting more of the true side of what that particular shade is. Now you might ask, why would I be doing this in any sort of piece here? Well, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to select one of our demo images here. And utilizing the same tool, I'm going to come here and I'm going to pick a specific shade on our face here. Again, I'm going to go view selected color range. And as you can see, we're getting some of the browns or the more rust tones that are in this, this tub of sorts here. So what we can definitely do very easily is make some adjustments so that we can find and fine tune just the right colors that we're looking for. And as we're doing this, you can see where, as I'm making those adjustments, the color itself for the back and the rear of that tub is disappearing as I'm only working with the colors of the skin tone here. So now that I've got just the color range that I'm looking to work with, I can adjust within my uniformity tools, finding just the range of where I would like to be for skin tone. Now, of course, this is just a sort of a quick and dirty example. A little bit later in the webinar, I've got a more higher end example to show as well. But now that I return to the full color range of the image, you can actually see that from where we started with the skin tones before, we actually are a lot cleaner and things are kind of moved together a little bit better. I realize that was a little bit fast, but we'll, like I said, we'll come back to this momentarily. Working very fast is also another part of the Capture One process. We do have the fastest import and export, as well as generating preview files for our software. That's where the preview files are a lot of where that speed comes into play, as when images are imported, you're not having to look at the full range of the image, you're not looking at the full raw file. We actually generate the previews and allow you to work within those previews and then connect to the raw file at the end. And then, of course, we do support some multi-threading as well, which allows computers and even older systems to work as efficiently as possible. My personal machine is a 2012 MacBook Pro, and I'm still utilizing it daily with shoots that I create and information that I'm putting together with very little lag and very little work in between without any sort of issues. Precision editing. So starting in Capture One, I believe 11 is when we started the process, and then moving into 12 and now 20. We've released the layers tools, and we are continuing to make those better and better. We have added advanced masking tools that are actually smart and can analyze an image and allow you to more quickly and efficiently mask images. And then, of course, we use our layers and our tools together to allow any of our tools to be applied to these layer masks and being able to work side by side with those. We talked very briefly about styles at the end of this slide here as well. We're going to go into styles a little bit more in just a couple of slides as well. But spoiler alert, they are really cool, and we actually really do like sort of some of the processes that come from that. Tethered capture is another piece. If you have not had the opportunity to utilize tethering in your workflow, I highly suggest giving it a try. As long as you have a camera that supports it, it is one of the great options for being able to easily, quickly see what items are in focus, if a capture just was not right. Instead of having to look down at the back of your computer screen on a really tiny little piece, you've got the ability to use a lot more real estate as you go along. You also have the ability to control your camera through Capture One, which we'll show here in just a bit as well. Of course, I'm going to move into that tethering demo now. So hopefully everything is still connected behind me. Normally, this is where I would invite a subject in that we could take a photo of. But since we all are having to work from our home offices for the most part these days, we have to get a little bit creative. So as we can see here, I do have my Sony a7R Mark IV connected to the system here. It is just as very simple as turning the camera on, and as long as the Capture One supports it, we're able to go. And I'm going to actually go ahead and make a capture as well. And just that easily and quickly, the capture that we just made has now been imported into Capture One. And it is a very, very, very high resolution process. And of course, we're able to very quickly analyze and jump in to see where we are on that piece as well. A lot of other products on the market do have this option, but I can certainly tell you that it's not a simple process. And particularly if you're working with certain Fuji cameras, you may have to set up hot folders and other sort of nastiness. That's not the case here with Capture One. It's just made to kind of plug in and go and sort of be a real great place to go from there. Flexibility and freedom. One of the other pieces that we like to do and what we have been doing is to make everything easier for our customers to get started with Capture One and to choose how they would like to use Capture One. Every tool that we have in our system is able to be customized and moved to the locations that you would like it to. Also, in terms of keyboard shortcuts and other pieces across the workflow of Capture One, you can make those changes. We have two different ways to utilize Capture One, what are called catalogs and sessions. I would love to go into that a lot more, but that's a whole hour webinar on itself. If you're really interested, I can teach you and show you where to find that information. And of course, one of the bigger pieces of this as well is we give our customers the choice as to whether or not to purchase a license or to subscribe. So you're no longer in a position where you have to be stuck in one place or the other. If you want to take control and make the purchase of your license, you certainly can do so. Or if a month-to-month plan works a little bit better into your needs, we can make that happen as well. But again, we want to put the choice into the customer's hands and not ours. So we're going to pop back to Capture One here, and we're going to talk some of those customization features. The first thing I would like to show is at the top of the screen here. If you control click on a Mac or right click on a Windows machine, you can go to Customize Toolbar. And I'm not sure if that window showed up. I know I was doing a webinar yesterday where it wasn't, but you should be able to see here several different tool pieces that have come up and that are available to make edits, including how much space you would like to have. So if you want to create a workflow that just fits your needs, you've got the ability to do so there. But also, I do want to point out that, as I mentioned, any tools across the range can be brought in and arranged on your workstation the way that you would like it to, even down to applying where that tool sits on our toolbar. The other piece that I would like to show as well, if you are currently working with a different raw processing software, we actually have a workstation that's built in called our migration workstation. And what that does is it will rearrange the way that things look to change it to something that might be a little bit more familiar with you and might be a little bit better to ease the transition into Capture One. But do keep in mind that, like I said, everything is fully customizable. So depending on how you choose to work, depends on how things should go for you here. And styles. Style packs we touched on briefly a couple of slides ago. These are not your average everyday presets. We actually work with, again, our color scientist team and photographers just like yourself to create individual style packs that are designed to change your images in very specific ways. And we actually make it very simple for photographers to create their own style packs so that they can advertise and take the looks of where the locations that they are and bring those looks together into the style of their individual camera. As it says here, there's a style pack to suit every mood or genre. And I'm going to actually pop in back to our page here as well to kind of give you some ideas here. So this is going to actually show you not only some of our styles that we have available, but also just how fast this entire process goes. So on our styles tab here, I've got this nice, lovely image from Emily Teague here. And I'm going to open up my black and white tool. And as I rotate through and just hover over these various images, you can actually see how quickly Capture One renders this style pack. And I'm going to actually go ahead and I'm going to apply this here to our image. Now, the cool thing as well is that these style packs are completely editable. So as I come in here, I think that I want this image to be a little bit on the darker side, and I want to change my black point just a bit. So that here, to me, makes the image the way that I would like it to. And of course, as you can see, even over the web, even though we're all plugged in, the rendering and how that particular image is shown on the screen is still very quick, and I can move through and select where I need to be. And of course, there we are. Just gave my little style demo there. So here, I'm going to actually go through and for about 2.5 minutes and give everybody a little bit more information about some of the other features that are new in our Capture 120.
Make your everyday photo editing easier. Discover what's new in Capture 120. Edit colors faster with a new basic color editor that's compact and easy to use. Just click anywhere on your photo and drag to adjust any color, or edit colors with intuitive sliders. Take total control of your contrast with the new High Dynamic Range tool. Recover highlights, boost shadows, darken the blacks, or boost the brightest areas of your photo, all in one tool. Start your editing with the cleanest possible images. With the best performing noise reduction of any photo editing software, your high ISO images will retain colors and details like never before. It's easy to visualize and transform your crops thanks to the visible handles on the crop tool. Instantly crop from the center, rotate the crop, or lock the aspect ratio using modifier keys. For smoother editing, scroll through all your tools easily and pin your favorites to the top for instant access. DNG files captured by your drone, smartphone, or camera will now have the most accurate colors and sharpest details. Working with layers is also faster than ever. Easily copy specific layers to a new photo without replacing the existing layers. Plus, there's tons of small updates that make a big difference to your workflow. Sort photos with one keystroke and edit faster thanks to new shortcuts and a more intuitive interface. With Capture 120, editing just got a whole lot easier.
All right, so that shows there's a bunch of little things that we've got sort of working behind the surface and behind the scenes to make this the best product that we possibly can. So, of course, I know that we are going a lot faster today than typically we would. And of course, I know that we're not going over a lot of in-depth how-to when it comes to Capture One software. But if you already are a Capture One user, I want to point your attention to our learn.captureone.com page, where we actually have both webinars and tutorials available for viewing at all times. Tutorials are designed to be more bite-sized chunks, generally between 2.5 to, say, 30 minutes, whereas our webinars are more ongoing, and they're going to be a little bit longer, typically about an hour. Our webinars, we are scheduling more all the time, and we actually have been making it a very big deal to have various pieces during each week. I think we've actually tripled and have had some sort of web content 3 times a week, at least since the entire Corona situation has started. So we always want to make sure that we are providing with new information and giving you easy ways to see how things work within Capture One. A couple of weeks ago, we also, well, before I get to there, a couple of weeks ago, we also launched our 30-day challenge, which is designed to take users from having never touched Capture One before all the way through to being very proficient in how you utilize the software. I've got a slide on that in a couple of slides here, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment as well. To give you some more examples of what type of information you can see, I do have a tutorial that I'm going to share, and we will watch that here right now.
In this tutorial, we'll look at how to do some simple but very powerful edits to a few photos in Capture One. Now, most of the essential tools for working on your photos are either found in the Exposure Tool tab or in the Color Tool tab. So first of all, on this photo, I feel the white balance is a bit on the cool side. So I just raise up the Kelvin just to warm it up slightly, just like that. Now moving on to the Exposure Tool tab, I can see it's a little bit dark overall. So I'll bring up the exposure slightly. And to make the midtones a bit brighter, I'll just increase the brightness by a small amount too. Add a little bit more contrast. And I want the color tones a bit more muted, so I'll take the saturation down a small amount. Now this photo has some bright or dark areas that need some recovery. So in the High Dynamic Range tool, I'll bring the highlights down. That will just recover some of the detail in the window to the left and open up some detail in the shadows just by increasing the shadow slider. I want to make the very deepest blacks that little bit darker, so I use the black slider, and that will just richen and darken those lower tones, but importantly, it won't clip those blacks. Finally, let's add a small amount of vignetting just to focus on the subject in the center. For this photo, I want to adjust some of the colors. So let's go to the color editor. It's here within the Color Tool tab. In the Basic tab of the tool, I have 9 ranges to choose from, 8 color ranges, and 1 range covering the full spectrum. It can be used in a couple of different ways. You can either pick the range you want to edit here, and then adjust the sliders. Note that the sliders are dynamic, so for example, you can see what the effect is going to be of changing the hue slider on colors, and also saturation and lightness too. So for the red tones, if I want to desaturate a little, I can just pull down the saturation slider. Alternatively, if you're not sure which color range to pick, the direct color editor is very simple to use. Let's have a look at it on this photo. First of all, select it here and then click on the color that you want to edit. Momentarily, a cursor pops up indicating that you can drag horizontally or vertically. Dragging vertically will change the saturation. So if I simply drag down, then the correct colors are chosen in the basic color editor and my saturation will change. If I drag horizontally, that will affect the hue. So dragging to the left, you can see the hue change in the basic color editor too. Finally, to affect lightness, that just requires a modifier key. So if I hold down my Alt or Option key and drag vertically, that will change the lightness. The added benefit of the direct color editor is that it will automatically pick the best ranges to edit. So now very quickly, if I want to change the background paper too, I can just move over here, click, and I'm going to Alt drag just to reduce the lightness a little. If you want to be reminded what each direction changes, just right click. You can edit the preferences and also the sensitivity. For these photos, I want to make a nice black and white conversion. Let's enable the black and white tool. It's also found in the Color Tool tab. The brightness of the individual channels can be controlled like this for more control over your black and white conversion. Let's crop the image a tiny bit as well. When you're done cropping, switch to another cursor tool or just hit Enter to commit. Let's also tweak the brightness and the contrast a little bit. So I'll just improve the contrast a little and brighten up the midtones as well. Now I want these settings synchronized across all the other photos. The fastest way is to use the global copy icon up here. Now the adjustments are copied to the clipboard. To apply them to the other photos, I just select them and click the apply icon. Per default, copying adjustments will not include compositional changes like the cropping and rotation. But let's assume I wanted the crop to be copied as well. For this, I'm going to use the copy function for individual tools. This is a highly useful trick that you can use for copying any adjustment from any tool to a sequence of photos. So follow along, it's very useful. Right now I have the photo selected that has been cropped. So if I go to the crop tool within the lens tool tab, there is a tiny double-sided arrow. Let's click that and click copy. Now the crop is copied to the clipboard. Now my other photos are still selected, so I can click apply like before. There is a shortcut for copying individual tools in one action. Let's reset the crop on the last 3 images. I can do that with the reset icon in the crop tool itself. Now if I shift select all the photos once more, hold shift down on my keyboard and click the double-sided arrow, the crop will apply to the other selected photos instantly. As I said earlier, this approach can be used on any tool. So let's add a bit more contrast to the first photo and synchronize that setting to the other 2 in the same way. So shift click on the double-sided arrow and the contrast is copied across. When adjusting, exporting or deleting multiple photos at a time, you need to make sure that the feature Edit All Selected Variants is enabled. You can toggle that setting from this icon.
All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of some of the tutorials that we have available for free that you can check out anytime. So as I mentioned before the video there, we have recently launched our 30-day challenge. You can actually find that at our website at capture1.com. And when you sign up for that 30-day challenge, you just kind of look around. And again, it walks you through bite-sized learning each day over 30 days to kind of bring up your mastery and you're comfortable with utilizing Capture One. I've actually even been learning a couple of things myself as we've gone through this process as well. So finally, what sort of products are available and where can you purchase those and how much do they cost? So Capture One today, we have 3 main products that we're working with. Capture One Pro is sort of our flagship. That is the ability to work with all the various camera systems that we support through Capture One. It's actually really ideal for a customer that either utilizes multiple camera systems or perhaps may have upgraded or changed from one camera to another in their photographic career. But we also have Capture One for Sony and Capture One Fujifilm. These are 2 specialized versions that are designed to work with Sony cameras or Fujifilm cameras, naturally by the name. And they are a little bit less expensive because you're working with just one camera type in that case. I'm a Sony shooter, so pretty much I stick with the Sony version for the most part as I'm going along. MSRP for the license of Capture One Pro is $299, and Sony and Fuji are $129 respectively in this case. And of course, that's the option for a perpetual license where you are able to purchase it and maintain and upgrade the software as you see fit. We do have subscription options as well if that's a little bit more your style. So that's pretty much the overall gist of what we have today, and sort of giving you a taste of what I think makes Capture One an awesome program. I will open the floor up again to questions, and let's see if there's anything that I can help answer.
Blake, it looks like we have one question here that is, it might be a little in depth, but Clark wants to know if Capture One supports panorama stitching in the version 20.
That's a great question. So here's sort of the quick answer to that. Capture One itself does not do any sort of stitching on its own, but we do have some integrations with Photoshop so that you can actually take multiple images and use the Stitch with Photoshop option from our scripts. We also have the ability to work within other pieces as well. I am not an Adobe user anymore. I have migrated to Affinity Photo. So if I was really good with AppleScript, I could probably write something to make something work there as well pretty easily. But otherwise, I do still have the ability to edit images with various products as well. So unfortunately, we don't have a way to stitch within the program, but there are some ways to still make that happen.
Another question, Natalie would like to know if or when the Canon 7D will be supported. I believe the 7D is already supported, is that correct?
I seem to believe so. Let me take a look here real quick. I'm going to actually go to my support page here. And as I fumble through and find this, we should be able to very easily make that determination. But I do believe that the 7D is already good to go.
Okay. And there's a good way within your support articles there, okay, to see which cameras are supported and whatnot.
And yep, looks like we're good for the 7D and the 7D Mark II. Both have the ability for tethering and live view support as well.
Excellent. A question we have from one of our Hasselblad users. Is there any chance for support for Hasselblad RAW in the future?
So unfortunately, I'm not able to speak to future products like that, but let's just say something might be happening pretty soon. No official dates yet or anything, but we are always working with new products. So as soon as we can, we'll sort of see what we can do to make that happen.
Excellent. I think that would be exciting for all the X1D users out there. Let's see, we got a couple more questions here. Is there a quick way you could show like HDR blending or combining for that type of thing in Capture One?
Unfortunately, I don't really have a good demo that I can show with that for HDR blending. Probably the best that I can do would be looking at our high dynamic range tools and just sort of being able to, kind of quickly take a look at the latitude that's within a couple of files. But unfortunately, I don't really have a good blending demo at this time.
Do you know what the limit on the frames would be on HDR blending?
And that I would have to look up as well. Like I said, I'm not real familiar with that particular set of workflows and challenges that come with that. So I'll have to do some research.
Most of us have stopped doing that nowadays. The dynamic range on raw files has just gotten so exponential, and programs like Capture 120 have been able to take full advantage of that. So could you quickly, we have another question here about focus stacking. Could you possibly walk through the process of focus stacking or explain how that goes through the Capture One system?
Okay, and that's a great question as well. So natively, there's not a focus stacking tool built into Capture One as it stands for most users. However, we do partner with Helicon Focus to work with some plugins to allow that particular setup to happen. And if you are utilizing one of the Phase 1 XF cameras, then you can actually partner together to control the camera to automatically focus stack that way. But definitely it's not built in natively quite yet.
I've used Helicon myself, and that's a very powerful program. You'd be hard pressed to find a better solution, that plus Capture One, pretty much anywhere for focus stacking. In my opinion, I've had quite good success with that. Looks like we have another question here. I can't remember. I haven't loaded any of my M10 monochrome images into Capture One, but I believe it's compatible, correct?
I was just looking at Leica earlier. Let's pop back over to my window here. So it looks like M10 for sure. And I'm not sure the distinguishing factor between the M10 or the M monochrome here. But I do want to say that we should be pretty up to speed with everything there. And yeah, it looks like as long as you're utilizing the DNG settings, we should be pretty good to go. No tethering, unfortunately.
James, I will go ahead and read. I've got your email here. I'll go ahead and try some of my M10M monochrome files in Capture 120 and follow up with you and make sure that that all works. Great. I think, let's see if we have any more. We have a long David has a question. It's a little complicated, David. I think for this instance, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and maybe link you and Blake up via email, and you can send him some of the questions as far as Coral Aftershock libraries and dates, making sure they all import properly into Capture One. I'm sure there's some great resources out there that would be that would delve much more deeply into this than we could do on this webinar per se. I think that pretty much